Hey, what's up? DNC Performance, and we are at the shop back the next day, and in Bobby Boucher's Mustang. And the reason I call him Bobby Boucher, if anybody knows Waterboy, is because he runs a 2J. So Bobby Boucher, Bobby 2J. I know him as Bobby 2J, but it sounds better when you say Bobby Boucher. So we're kind of going through the car. This is the first time I've had it up on the lift. It's a 2J Turbo 400 trans brake. You got a good aluminum drive shaft, 8.8. Pretty much has like, I think it's UPR stuff. Yeah, it's UPR. Has a UPR anti-roll bar. Coilovers, axle tubes are welded in, rear mount radiator, parachute mount, blah 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 blah, all the good stuff. So this is my first good look at the car, and already there's quite a few things I don't like. Kind of the wheel tub kit, when it was done, it was plasma cut instead of using like a nice cut off wheel or sawzall or something. So this plate here is actually the plate that's supposed to get welded back in, and you can see it's not welded anywhere along the bottom or the back. And to do that now would be basically disassemble a lot of stuff, tear the car up a lot. Something for him to think about. I did do the cage on this car. It's a full chrome moly cage. I replaced this bar here, this back crossbar, because the original one was like 4 pieces they had welded together and it wasn't welded into the frame. So I made this plate that wraps the frame. There was a little bit of rust on the frame, not quite rot, but it was a little bit of rust. So I made this plate to tuck against the frame. Made it a little long on that side, not too big of a deal, but I did that on both sides, welded in. That's where the down bars on the cage come to. I think it's a Team Z cage. I believe it's a Team Z cage. And then it has all the, where are they? The fancy bars that come through the floor. Like where you cut out the floor there, and they go all the way up and they run into this pocket on the unibody. And that basically eliminates the need for these. You can see it in there. Kind of. Right there. That little tube in there. So that's how far it goes into the frame. Pretty far. So you don't need these janky frame connectors. Another issue I have is everything was ran. I started undoing some of the stuff and some of the zip ties. Everything's just zip tied, crunched up in there. But you can see the radiator hose here is rubbing on the shock spring. It's crunched in. That's how hard it's pressed on the shock spring, which is causing a lot of stress on the fitting, which is also hitting the radiator mount. Other side is not too bad, but it's sitting on top of the axle tube, which is okay in a sense. Preferably not how I'd want to do it. So I just spoke with him. Basically, he brought the car to us to get the brake lines done. I'm not a fan of these braided lines, especially in this. This is not brake hose, like brake braided line. This is more of like a standard AN. You could see there's actually a piece of electrical tape from whoever cut it on there, and that's a big no-no, is leaving the electrical tape on the braided line and then putting the fitting over it. And then you could see here the big arc that it has, and it's putting stress on that fitting. Brake lines have a lot of pressure. Actually, it almost looks like that would fall out. And again, the tape on the fitting or on the pipe. So we're gonna I'm gonna tell him he's got to change that. That's not, in my book, that's not safe. You kind of need brakes on a car. So, and you can see here, this is the fitting. So it's basically just a standard, looks like a cheap fitting too, which is not good. These are brake line fittings with the big knurl crimp, however you want to call that, but the crimped ends. And then these are sleeved here. That is a brake line, like a braided brake line. It also has the plastic sheathing over it, so we can use the fronts. The fronts are good. Both fronts have them. Yep. So we can use the fronts. That's not an issue with that. So I think what I'm going to do, I also don't like the water pump being here, and it's just held in with some self-tappers. The aluminum bracket is cool, but I don't know. It's may change that, or I may put it on this side. Not really sure. I got to get it off and kind of size out where we can fit it, hide it. My ideal location would be to hide it right here. There's nothing here in this area, except for the wastegate, but he wants to bring the exhaust down through there, so that might not work. Few different options with that, but I'd like to have it in a better location. And his, sorry if I'm being like kind of hesitant on everything, but his both water necks are on this side of the engine. There's the upper, the lower is somewhere in here. I know it's there because there it is. There's the lower there. So instead of having to run tubes across and over into that, and you got to get that reservoir. So my thought was take the reservoir, mount it here on the outside of the frame, basically in the same spot, but outside the frame. That's not a bad spot. Then you've got a short run to your lower neck, which can come off and get the AN welded. The upper neck can come off and get an AN welded. So that shouldn't be an issue with that. Just he needs to get the AN fittings. And then just kind of going to go through the car today, get everything off that doesn't need to be on here. Maybe tighten up his rack because it kind of sucks steering the car. And everything's loose. Oh, I see his tie rods are loose. They're not. Nothing's adjusted. He basically right now has the car together as a roller just so he can get it moving around and stuff. But I may set it on the ground, set kind of a rough toe for him. I'll tighten in the rack, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to push the car around. It barely steers. There's so much play in the front suspension stuff, and I think one's towed really far in or towed really far out, whatever it was. But yeah, this is Bobby's car. It's actually, overall the car is good. I mean, the cage is really good cage. I feel like I did a really good job putting it together and welding it all in. Everything's TIG welded on it. So, yeah, I'm going to get to work. I'm going to strip everything out of it. I'll probably end up pulling the radiator out of it, pulling everything out of it, getting it all set aside, close up, and kind of go from there and see what's what. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm going to do for now. I also believe not sure what's going on with the fuel cell mount, but it's only mounted in the front. I don't know. We'll see. Let me get everything apart and then go from there. All right, so working on Bobby's car. I got a lot out of it. Well, I got the radiator off, the water pump, which are up there. Then the lines, I pulled the lines all the way out. They're over there on the floor for now. Then I started working on the master cylinder stuff. It's got the strange block off plate, the booster delete. And then I assume it's a Wildwood master cylinder. Or not Wildwood. I'm not sure what master cylinder it is. It's like an OEM style. And then he's got the Wildwood proportioning valve, which is up there, which came like as a kit. So it came with those lines, the proportioning valve, that bracket, some spacers, some fittings and whatnot. I put the bracket on, and those little lines, those hard lines, do not go nowhere near the master cylinder like it shows in this fancy picture. Just bolted all together. So I think it's meant to work with more of a Wildwood master cylinder, like in kind of a stock application, but it doesn't work. The lines are an inch below the ports, plus the lines are the wrong size fittings for the port, so I got to get some adapters from the port to the lines. And then most likely what I'll do is kind of take that bracket, and I'll cut this edge off right here. I'll cut this edge off and I'll scoot the bracket up, put it in place, weld it. That way we have a bracket for the proportioning valve. Brake pressure switch, so I assume that's going to go on the front. Replace that one. I don't know if that's like a low fluid or what that one's for. So he got that one. I assume that's all he wants, his brake lights to work. Then I took the downpipe that was standing up. I basically cut it all apart. Not all of it. I cut a section off of it here, and I put an extra pie cut in there, scooted it over. Stainless is hard to weld when it's dirty. So it didn't come out the prettiest. It's not the ugliest, but it's not the prettiest. And then it goes down there for now. He's got a bunch of stainless he's gonna bring up to me, but now it's got room, you know, all the way around it. That's an ugly booger right there. So I'll get the rest of the pipe from him. I'll finish that. What I'll probably end up doing is going out through that hole there, and I don't know if there's enough room to bring it out the side and kind of baloney cut it pointing down or pointing up or something. I don't know. It all depends on how much space there is. What else? Old brake lines out on this side. I still got to pull. I think I still got that one tucked in there. I got to tug that one out, but the nut is stripped on it. Get down in there. Yep, this nut right here is stripped, so I'll probably end up having to heat up this side of the fitting a little bit or something, or take this fitting off, cut the line, take this fitting out, put it in the vise or something. Had to figure something out. And then I was gonna change this today, but kind of out of time and out of patience with that master cylinder, so I figure I'll walk away before I keep going and make it worse on myself. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Shouldn't have brought me the car painted. Man, every time I touch it, I leave a grease mark on it, and then I find myself wiping the grease off of it. But I'll have to get some covers or something, put it on there. I have some somewhere. But yeah, now I turned into Mustang Row over here. That's it for this video. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. Leave me a comment. I appreciate you watching. Have a good day.